go ahead and jump right in. This is a little different than what we normally do, but I frequently get asked, as I was just an hour ago, uh, how do we protect ourselves personally? And that's something that we've been doing, particularly for key people of companies. You know, the company owners, the president, key personnel. And so I'm going to talk about personal protection and privacy and security in the next 20 or 30 minutes. So you'll get a lot of good information. And let's do another question. How many of you, and just say yes in the chat box, have any of you or someone you personally know been a hacking victim or a ransomware victim? Just answer yes in the chat box. I'd like to see, do this periodically. We know that typically we're seeing anywhere between 10 to 20% affirmative responses in that. So it's a lot bigger problem than most people realize or frankly are willing to acknowledge. And it can happen to home users just as much as businesses. The ransomware attacks in particular are done at scale. They're highly automated, and all you have to do to be a potential victim is just end up on the wrong email list. It doesn't matter if it's your Yahoo mail, your Gmail, your company email. Once you're on that list that a hacker's sending out phishing emails that the payload is ransomware, if it gets through the cracks and your security's not up to snuff, you're going to be a victim. It's that simple. Unless you know what to look for. So I'm going to start with some real life stories, and I think a couple of these are actual personal experience. So one of the relatively new clients that we brought on, and before they were a client, they were referred to us by a friend of mine, but basically the business was a family commercial real estate business. From marketing perspective, it's called a family office. And they live in different parts of the United States, and they actually do have a physical office, but they typically remote in and things like that. But they were dealing with high-end commercial real estate. And when we found out, the reason they reached out to us is they had $400,000 withdrawn from their checking account. I think it was a wire. A wire went out, and to kind of put things in perspective, they didn't discover it for almost a month before they did it. And so when they discovered it, they worked with the bank, and I think they clawed back most or some of the money. They had 2 attempts, actually. Even after the first one, they had another one, a little bit smaller amount. But what it ended up being was a business email compromise. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. The first one is the next slide. What it ended up being was a business email compromise, and by having the email compromised, that in turn gave the hacker a way to get into the bank account and initiate wire transfers. If any of you are familiar, most banks have what's known as a cash manager, and the whole purpose of a cash manager is to add capabilities to the bank to where you can initiate domestic, international wires, ACH transfers in and out. It just gives you a lot more power over your bank account, and they had that on their account because they deal with a lot of money. And that's why they reached out to us. And we don't typically, we typically do respond to that. That's an incident response scenario. We're truly a security defensive company. We don't mind assisting with at all, and that's our job. Existing clients, when they have an attempt to hack, then that is our job. We're there for instant response. We're going to mitigate and remediate and detect, and everything's going to be handled by a bunch of InfoSec professionals. But if you're not a client, we don't have our tools on there. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have been hacked. But we don't have our tools. We don't know what we're walking into. And that particular specialty within the industry is incident response. There's companies out there that is their response. Crisis management, ransom negotiations, and on and on and on. That's what they do day in and day out. Like I said, our particular specialty is making sure it doesn't happen in the first place. And because we do already have our tools on there, if something does get through, we know exactly how to respond to it. So it's a little different animal. There's a lot of specialties, both in the criminal side and the good guy side. It's a huge, huge multi-trillion-dollar global industry. It's bigger than the worldwide illegal drug trade, by far. So another one that came across, and this was a brand new attorney, pretty small firm, and he didn't follow all of the recommendations. We can't force clients to put everything in. They limited budgets. They do their own risk analysis in addition to the one that we do, and of course we recommend some things that people don't do, and if they choose not to, if they elect not to, then we have to write an exception policy. Like, we're not liable if a breach occurs through here. And this particular scenario was the attorney was using, I don't remember what email service, but it was a public email like Yahoo or AOL. And both of those services have had all sorts of breach problems, particularly around email. It's just not a secure email system. And add that in with the habits of most people never change their password. They reuse their passwords, and they're going to get hacked. So what happened was this attorney sent an email to a client, an invoice for $15,000. And he put his ACH information in there, routing number, bank account number. That's all you need if you want to do an ACH. And the bank has approved you to do an ACH. The email was intercepted by a criminal, and the routing number and the bank account number was changed. And his client sent the $15,000 to the criminal. I don't know what the resolution to that was, but it's, at the very least, it's embarrassing to the attorney. At any rate, he immediately upgraded and got a business type email service through us. And so it's a much, much more secure, because we can control password length and those administrative controls to where we know that email account is secure. And you can't hack the server because of the protections that we put in place. And then he's changing all of his email over to this new email address. Okay, now this one is the one about the commercial, the family business. We talked about that. Now this one is not a personal one. This was just fascinating. To give you an idea of the depths that criminals will go to,
Hey, Tom, I can't hear you. You muted yourself.
thanks for catching that. This email came into an elderly woman that apparently had some service with Best Buy. And it was about $160. And the email said that they automatically deposited $160,000 in her account, and I think it had a phone number, and she called it, and the person on the other end said, well, let me get access to your computer, and then, I can initiate it back out, or else I'm going to lose my job. And they couldn't get to it through a computer. That's not surprising. So then they said, well, you're going to have to go to the bank. I'm sending an Uber to pick you up. Now, the woman got suspicious and she went over to a neighbor's house. We don't really know if the Uber actually showed up, but I would say it probably did, and there was no one to pick up, or else she would have been going to the bank to initiate the transfer back out to this company. And there's all kinds of clever and new and innovative ways these criminals are using every single day to anybody. You know, they operate in conversion rate world. It's a numbers game. It's a one-to-many scam. It's not a one-on-one street scam. You know, I'm sure everyone here have all experienced attempted scams on the streets. If you've spent any time on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, there's a million of them there. It's almost funny, you know. It's comical. They have signs up in the shops that, you know, don't play the game. Tell them where you got them shoes. You know, that's just one of the scams. And but in the internet, the criminal hacking industry, this is a one-to-many. It's done at volume. You know, that Best Buy, or that what appeared to be a Best Buy email, was probably sent to 100,000 people, or who knows what the origin of the database was. You know, most modern ransomware, it's just a list of emails. And they're thinking, well, if we get 1% of 100,000 emails that go out become victims, we got 1,000 victims, and let's say we collect an average of $1,000 ransom. We'll say it's going to individual home users. Well, that's $1 million payday. And they don't know who you are. They don't really care who you are. All of the systems for them to get paid, unencrypt the files, encrypt the files, send in the email, every bit of that is automated. It's the one-to-many scam done at scale and automated. So these different things are, you know, they inundate us every day. You don't see as many as you get because your spam filter presumably does a pretty good job of trapping most of these. I go in the spam filter, you know, for IronTechSecurity.com, and in any one given day, there's just dozens and dozens of phishing emails. But they don't work perfectly. No spam filter does. You know, the rule of thumb with the spam filter and the way we manage ours is we try our best to trap for the spam filter, but if we tighten it up too much, then legitimate email gets lost. And these mailing lists, these email lists where you're getting from Best Buy and all of those technically aren't spam. Well, Best Buy is not a good example, but legitimate email from Best Buy. You've bought something from them. Your email is being, you know, you put it in there to get your rewards or whatever. That's not technically spam. And people confuse those two. And after a period of months or years, they're on all these different newsletter distribution lists, and they want us to tighten the spam filter up. Well, if we tighten it up to catch those, then we start catching legitimate emails. And invariably, we have to loosen it back up again. The best thing to do to stop all of those, about twice a year, I go through and unsubscribe. I got an unsubscribe week, you know. You know, in the morning when I check my email, instead of just deleting it, I hit unsubscribe. And yeah, there are some experts out there that say that, well, if it is a phishing email, then you're just confirming the email. I realize that, but they already got it to me anyway. And I did, and the legitimate ones I'm going to truly be unsubscribed from, so it'll reduce it overall over a period of time. This particular one that you're looking at right now, that I just saw a report on about an hour ago, is an email. It says here, there is evidence that your PayPal account has been accessed unlawfully. $600 has been debited to your account for the Walmart e-gift card purchase. If you suspect you did not make this transaction, immediately contact us. And here's the kicker. This email actually went from legitimate PayPal.com servers. So if you just look at the sender and you take the time to click on it, to reveal the real email address underneath it, which is what you should do if you're suspicious, you'll see that it says PayPal.com. Now, you got to be careful because sometimes the scammers will slightly change a letter in the domain. So a cursory look at it, they may use 2 L's instead of 1. They got all kinds of little tricks to make it look like it's from a legitimate domain. But in this particular case, it actually went from PayPal mail servers. So that wouldn't work. If you call the 800 number, it's a criminal organization that staffs a support center, but it's not PayPal. So anytime you receive something like this and you're suspicious of it for whatever reason, don't call the number that's on the email. Call the number that's on the legitimate website. That's a good rule of thumb no matter what. That way you don't get locked in to the incorrect help desk. But the old school ways of determining whether an email is legit or not are being bypassed. They're changing their tools, tactics, and techniques each and every single day and getting more and more sophisticated. I don't think this one has any misspelled words, any bad grammar. All of the logos, the color schemes are exactly what they should be. So keep that in mind. The scammers are getting so good at these phishing emails that they can fool professionals. And the reason I know that is because we simulate and test everyone in IronTech about once a week. And it's used for training purposes. And if someone falls for it, it's not a real scam. But if you fall for it, you get about a 2-minute video clip explaining what you did wrong. So it's for training purposes and to increase awareness. And don't think it can't happen to you. There's only one person in the company that's never been fooled by these simulated phishing emails, and it's not me. One time I would coincidentally, and this actually happened to someone else in the company, coincidentally, I had been tweaking my Google or Gmail security settings and tracking settings and all of that, and it just so happened one of those emails came in, looked like it was from Google Security. I didn't bother to check the email address, and I clicked on the link, and that's when I got the training video. These scams can fool professionals out there. So what are some of the things that you can do to protect yourself at home? To protect your family? You've got to think about all of the devices on your network, not just your router. Hopefully you're not doing, I commonly see people, they will, how you have to set your router up and it kind of walks you through it, and they want to change the name to the Kirkham family, right? The SSID is what it's called, but it's how you recognize the network. If you're at Hilton, it's a Hilton property, I think it's Hilton.com or whatever. So that way everybody can see the right one. The problem with that is it's broadcasting to everybody. That's the people we want to hack. There's the Kirkham home right there. I want to hack Tom Kirkham. If you light it up in any neighborhood, anywhere in the world, chances are you're going to see 10, 15. If you're in a high density area like Manhattan, you're going to see 100 different wireless access points with various names. Use a generic name for the network. Even the default is fine. Netgear 37 or whatever came with whatever your router device is. Usually the default is the best way to go. That way, anyone that wants to connect to your network should at least would have to work at it. And by all means, change the default username and password. Most modern routers will make you do that. It wasn't the case 10 years ago. You had to go in manually and do it, and you had to have some technical skills. You just have to be very sensitive about, who all's getting that information. You need to turn on WPA2. That's the most secure part of wireless. It's not great, but it's the best thing we have. And then you've got to look at all the different computers and all the different devices that everyone in your own family uses to connect. Tablets, laptops, desktops, whatever the device is. And make sure they're adequately protected and secured. Because any one of those devices can be a vector for a malicious, virus or Trojan. And then last but not least, you've got to think about your Internet of Things. Nest thermostats, the doorbell thingy with the camera on it, any wireless, any kind of video equipment that's, wireless or video surveillance that connects with network technology. Think about guests coming over to your home and they want to borrow your Wi-Fi. I would recommend most modern routers have a guest network availability. Don't let them log into your family network. Have them log into the guest network. That'll isolate that device because you don't know if their device is safe. It's not enough to trust them. I can trust somebody all day long. In the business, we call it zero trust policy. I trust the person. I just don't trust that device to be clean. I trust my children, but I don't trust that their computers are clean. People inadvertently infect these things all the time. So what are some best practices? And many of these, if not all of them, are the same things that we recommend for business. You've got to have an EDR these days. Antivirus is, it's better than nothing. And Windows Defender that's built into Windows is pretty good. We actually leave it activated in most cases. But there's a new class of products coming out. It's not available or they're out. I'm sorry. It's called EDR. It's been out for a few years. We require our business clients to implement it, or they're not clients. But it's the only thing out there that'll stop a modern ransomware attack and other types of attacks. Turn on and use multi-factor authentication wherever possible. And you can turn it on your Facebook account. You can turn it on your bank account, hopefully. There's still banks out there that don't have it for, regular personal checking accounts, but I'll let you decide if you want to change banks. But turn it on everywhere it's available. It's free. It's built in to Amazon. It's built into Facebook. You'd be shocked if you just took a few minutes to just look through the security settings of your account. How many places have that availability? Is MFA the same as two-step thing? Yes. It's also called two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, two-step authentications, whatever. Technically, the text message is a little bit less safe, but it's better than not having it turned on at all. And if that's what you've got turned on, I'm cool with that. But just know that a Google Authenticator app, the way most of them set up, where you have to punch in a 6 or 8 digit number in order to log in. That is the best security. Turn on and use disk encryption on all your devices. If you're a Mac house or an Apple house, it's been on by default for years. Start using a password manager to create unique passwords, store those unique passwords, and they'll be with you wherever you are. And you won't even care what the password is. On many websites, it'll automatically fill it in for you. Use a virtual private network whenever traveling, whenever you're connecting to any public Wi-Fi especially, but if you're connecting to your company network, I would argue that you should use it even from your own home if you're connecting wirelessly with your laptop. And think about your privacy. Go into your Google account, go into your Facebook account, go into your Amazon account, and look for those security and privacy settings. And turn off all the tracking possible, because you're the product to Facebook. They're selling your data, your interest. They're selling things to your friends. They're selling things to you because of interest that you've expressed. A little bit beyond the scope of this webinar, but there are also many things you see on Facebook is there to manipulate you. Social engineering, especially on politics. I don't care what side you're on. There's stuff there that's bad both ways. If you're into that whole right and left thing, it doesn't matter. Very easy to manipulate people on Facebook. And finally, the best practice these days is to have a skilled security team. And that's somebody to investigate and look into security events. Someone you can just call, say, I think this is a problem, or is this email legitimate? We answer those all the time. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this VPN or SASE on an upcoming webinar. So we're just going to skip over that and the difference between VPN or SASE. Probably a little beyond the scope of this. But this is an example, a screenshot of one of my bank accounts. It's an app. It's free. I turn it on, and this one produces an 8-digit number. It's only good for either 30 or 60 seconds. User credentials are routinely compromised. And if you're one of the 90% of the people in the world that reuse passwords, and your bank account password is one of those, if those credentials are compromised, if it's the same as your Facebook account and your Facebook account gets compromised, they then have access to your bank account, your E-Trade account, your Fidelity account, your Edward Jones account, your Merrill Lynch account. We require our clients to turn it on and use it for remote access. You're remoting into the office because you're sick, or it's a COVID lockdown again, or you're on vacation. But turn it on everywhere you can. Take a look in there. Go through the website settings for Amazon and Facebook, and we're going to talk about that in some other webinars coming on, how you can find those settings, where they are. Facebook really is confusing. It confuses me. And the cynic in me says it's done intentionally because that impacts their revenue. Like I said, a password manager is going to create random passwords. You're not going to care. It's going to make you make them all unique, and it's with you everywhere. It syncs across all your devices. It's right there on your phone. We're going to talk about these in a later webinar as well, as we get more into this individual privacy and security. But just know that privacy and security go hand in hand. Everyone has information that needs to be kept private. I commonly hear, well, I don't have anything to hide. I don't care if somebody gets into my email account. Really? Well, send me your credentials. You can do it. If you're going to give them to me, just use the contact form at IronTech Security. And let me go through your email account and see what I can do. See what information I can find that might be of interest to WikiLeaks. See if I can reset your bank account password. Everybody has information that has to be kept private so you can be more secure. Not to mention selling your data like Facebook and Google does. That's their business model. They read automatically at scale your emails, your Gmail. If you're on a free Gmail account, they go through your emails and present ads based upon what's in your email. Almost all free public email services do that. Now, iCloud is an exception. As far as I know, they don't read your emails. Apple has a different policy. You're not the product to Apple. If it's a free service, you're the product. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the list goes on and on and on. And I've got red slashes against AOL and Yahoo because their security is just horrible at best. And you really need to seriously, if you're on those two especially, Google has, or Gmail has pretty good security. But if you're still using one of these, I know it's painful. I know you may have been using that AOL address for 30 years or 40 years, whatever it is, but just know that it's not secure. There are private email services out there. StartMail. You've got to pay for it because you're not the product. But it's not much. Privacy is an investment in your security. Investing in your privacy is an investment in your security. So you don't have identity theft or your bank account gets sucked dry or you're conned into doing something else. And then finally, in a later webinar, I'm going to show you how to do private browsing and private searching. So they can't track you in searches. Google is StartPage is a private browser that returns anonymized Google results. So it's like searching. You know, if you just search Google, it delivers the results that are personalized for you, including the ads. But StartPage, they do take ads, but StartPage they send the results as if you were anonymized on Google. So you're kind of getting Google results, but you're protecting your privacy somewhat. Like I mentioned earlier, turn on encryption. And I'm going to tell you in a later webinar how you can get a security team to help you protect your privacy. And the whole purpose of this is to start thinking in terms, many or most of you are, you might be clients of ours, from a business to business perspective. And you need to think about the key people, or maybe everyone in the company, that what would happen if somebody had a serious case of identity theft, or all of a sudden they lost all of their retirement savings. Do you think they're going to be a productive individual? Particularly if they're a key personnel that requires high performance on the job. Not that everybody's job, not that everyone shouldn't be high performing, but especially the key personnel. They don't need those distractions when it would only take another little bit of an investment to protect their family and to protect their home life. You know, there's a good chance you're probably providing health insurance, or at least you're subsidizing it in some way. That's to keep them healthy. Let's think about their cyber life. It's a different world that we live in now. So we're going to talk a lot about this stuff. The fact that good cybersecurity is no longer do-it-yourself. I almost always get asked, how do I do? I had it today in a webinar, educational webinar I did today to dentist. How do I protect my home life? And we have got a plan for protecting high net worth celebrities, others that have a risk profile that their current situation they're not comfortable with. And those risks to individuals, whether it's the president, the CEO, the owner of the company, that home environment has a different risk profile. It's going to take different things to address that risk to make it as good as the company risk is. Or, I mean, the defense is as good as the company defense is. And that's what this webinar series that we've begun today is going to talk about and lead into. So what's valuable to you? Peace of mind. It's a review of the 5 things that you need. You know, I talk about this a lot. The cost of a breach can run at least 4 to 5 times the cost of prevention. Depending on what the breach is composed of, it could be embarrassing. It could destroy reputations. It could open up lawsuits. Could lead to health records being obtained. That's a great way to do identity theft, is get people's medical records or anything that you don't want published, or it can be used against you, or methods to extract money, which is most of the hacks, by the way. The vast majority of hacks, especially to individuals and small companies, it's all about the money. Most small companies don't have to worry about China attacking them, or even the nation state of Russia. Now, most of the criminals are in Russia because Russia coddles them. They're frequently aligned in their objectives, or the criminals are aligned frequently with Putin's objectives. So it's a convenience thing for him, and it scales out his cyber army. He can just say attack at will, right? So the key to this is just start becoming aware. Like I said, this is the first in a series of webinars that we're going to do on this. I want you to start thinking about your business, your personal life. What would the loss of everything you own, what would that mean to you or your company or to your personal life? And we frequently use this term, high net worth individuals. Well, what a net worth is it can be quality of life to you. It doesn't have to be financial. This is our contact information, and if you want to get on the list to be notified about the next upcoming webinars in this series, there's method to my madness that I think that you may be interested in. Just reach out to us and say, hey, I want to make sure I stay on this list and learn more about what you guys have on your roadmap. And if you really want to get a good idea of a lot of the things that you really should be concerned about, my book came out about a month ago. It's available on Amazon, either Kindle, or you can get a printed copy of it. Pick up a copy of that. It's a light read. It's written specifically for the non-technical person, the business owners, the individuals. And it's an easy read. Hopefully enjoyable, I'd like to think. Let's see. I'm taking a look at the questions here before we wrap it up, because I've gone a little bit over. Let's see. Claudia, I see that. Yeah, a lot of people get their credit card stolen, and that's sometimes hacks. About half and half for me personally. Is the Mac password manager cool? No. But Apple is working on a new version of that might eliminate passwords. I think right now, if it was cool, I'd use a built-in Mac password. I still do. But if it doesn't recognize where it needs to be used, it's a real pain to find it. Now, the caveat to that is never store your passwords in a browser except on a Mac and only in Safari, because all of that ties back into the Apple security keychain system, and it's super, super secure. But it's got a very clunky, hard to use interface when it doesn't work right. Keeper, 1Password, those they actually have a user interface that's pretty darn good. And even if it doesn't automatically recognize the website, it's relatively easy to go get your credentials and copy and paste them in there. Or just hit a button that says autofill. So those are all great questions. And I think that's it for today, unless someone else has any other questions. What about Google? What about Google, Sean? Is it safe? No, you're the product. Now they're paid for. Sean? If you're talking about the Google Chrome browser, don't store it in Chrome. There's a reason why they give away. Just don't store it in the browser is a simple answer to that. Even if you're on a Mac. Yeah. But, once again, that Chrome browser is there for free to get you locked into the Google platform, to get you locked into the Google search engine. Does 1Pass let you use over multiple? Yeah, absolutely. Phone, iOS, Windows, it synchronizes across all those platforms. Now, another question that you another question that you may be asking me, or someone's thinking it, is, well, wait a minute. If all these passwords are all synchronized, what happens if one password gets cracked? Well, that's a good question. That's got to be a very secure password, never used anywhere ever before and ever again. Now, here's the cool thing about it. It sends the data across the devices almost instantaneously, so they're all synchronized. But before it leaves the device, it's encrypted, and it's not crackable. Unless you've got billions of dollars in access to supercomputers. It's all encrypted, point to point, from any device it's sent to or from. So even 1Password or Keeper, they can't access your passwords no matter what. They tell you that. Your master password, don't call us. We don't know what your passwords are. We can't get to your passwords, so don't call us. Let's see. Yeah, that's a good point, Claudia. That it makes it convenient, to use Chrome because it'll synchronize across all your devices. Yeah, 1Password I like. We're a Keeper partner, and we're a best-of-breed security company, so we adopt and use and partner with what we consider best-of-breed vendors, best-of-breed products. Now, having said that, I love 1Password and used to use it for a long time. I don't think it's any better or worse than Keeper. Short story. But just, the big takeaway, I think, from this discussion here is don't store passwords in the browser. Go into the preferences of your browser and check the box off, allow to store passwords, and clear any that are in there. Remove them. As far as browsers go, from a security standpoint and a privacy standpoint, Safari and Firefox are the ones you should use. Now, I know that there are some kind of specialized things that you do that requires Chrome. Some of the webinar programs, work better in Chrome. And you need to keep it on there just for that reason, but just don't use it. They're always releasing security patches, and they're almost always zero-day threats. So, thank you, Claudia, for putting that link in there. Yeah, and I think that is the link for 1Password. All right, any other questions? Because I have gone way over. All righty, well, thank you for your time. Like I said, you probably want to keep an eye out for these next ones because I'm going to talk more and give more examples, where to go in your settings, where to go into your Facebook account to cut down all this creepiness. You go search for, something you're interested in buying, a set of tires, I don't know, and the next thing you know, all your Facebook ads, all the ads on Facebook is about tires. It's a creepy. And you can limit that and get off of being the product for these companies, these social media companies and other companies, and start getting control of your life and your privacy and your security. So, once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.